What's up, everybody? We back, Survivor podcast, talking about the newest season, season 47, episode 7. 7-7. Is there a connection? I don't even know. I'm D Bird. Who are you?
I'm DJB, and I'm so excited about episode 7. Oh, it was a good one, Bird.
You like that one? You like that shit? Is that why you watch?
Oh, it's why I watch. Just coursing through my veins. I wanted to contact you right away and communicate, and I said no, nay. I will save it for Sunday night.
I'm not gonna lie, I had the same thought go through my head. Is like, oh, I want to text him. I can't do it. We have an hour to talk about this shit. No spoilers, right?
No spoilers. It's got to be organic, got to be fresh. Got to talk about our beloved cast members in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when people hit me up because I, do the Wednesday weekly review show. And sometimes people in the community slide in the DMs and they're like, hey, check out my song. Check out this thing. I made some, tweaks to it. And I was kind of like, not on the clock, bro. Like, wait till Wednesday. I'll do it live. I don't want you to submit it on Wednesday and have me hear it again. I love giving my first reaction. And that's what I saved for you today for Survivor episode 7.
Well, I feel honored. I'm sorry, I keep looking over my back. Puppy. I think we've talked about this on the cast before. 10 months old, chocolate lab. Chews everything. She's currently trying to eat. Tessa, no. She's trying to eat my son's bike helmet, and that was the bike helmet falling.
Chrono Flow, good morning. 1 a.m. Almost in wherever you're at. Portugal. Sure.
Oh, I lied.
Fiji? Are you on the island of Fiji with the survivors that we know and love? Let us know in the comments if you've been following along to this season of Survivor, because it's a banger. Finally, we got through the garbage and we're on to the fun stuff. So excited to talk about it. Basically, where we left off last episode. Do you need to deal with your chocolate lab, DJB?
No, I just gave her a bone. She's probably going to jump up on my couch here. And yep, you see her right there with the bone. We're golden.
Good. Well, Chrono, this is episode 7. So, I guess we'll be having some spoilers. Love to have you participate in the chat. But also we'll be going through some shit,
Yeah. So to speak.
So to speak. So I guess, this is your 5-second spoiler warning, and then we'll hop into it. 5, 4, 3, 2, don't chew the helmet. 1. All right. So Survivor episode 7, Fallen Dove. Shout out, playa. Thanks for joining us as we talk about season 47, episode 7. Hope you guys are all caught up, because we just dropped the spoiler wall, and now the wall's about to come crashing down. Guess who just got voted out? Fucking Rome. Fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. Fuck him. What a piece of shit. Hallelujah. Mwah, mwah. Praise the heavens. They come back. The merge has happened. And you know what's crazy is I didn't realize they had a name for the merged contestants. Did you know their name Becca or Bika?
I was calling it Becca because I didn't like it. And
it's a bad name, right?
I didn't want to take any extra time to understand how to say it.
Have you met a Becca in real life?
Yeah. When I said that, I instantly regretted it. My sister-in-law is Becca, and she's a real sweetheart. So
can't take it back now.
She's balancing all the other Beccas out, because every other Becca is just trash. But sister-in-law Becca, she's a real one.
She's the one exception that proves the rule. Got it.
Yeah.
Well, shout out sister-in-law Becca. Fuck every other Becca. If your name's Becca, fuck you if you're not DJB's sister-in-law.
Yep, heard that. And just want to put out there that we are outperforming HBO Max at this point. Thank you, Fallen Dove.
I love to hear it. Obviously there's some great content on both. Both sides have good points. But for us, we like to go through episode by episode and dissect what happens in Survivor. The The last episode we watched was episode 7. Spoiler alert. So the crew comes back after just voting out Rome, and Teeny is stoked, grinning ear to ear, just couldn't have gone better. The issue was everyone voted for Rome except for Saul. Saul put Andy's name down, and they had to talk about it. So they walk off. Andy, being the robot he is, like, what? But why would you vote for me?
Does not compute. Does not compute.
My eyes are leaking. And Saul's like, oh, well, I'll be honest with you, Andy. Sam told me to put your name as a backup.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Andy realized, oh, maybe the people that have been dragging me along aren't as close as I thought. Oh, maybe I've been completely in the dark. Oh, maybe I should start playing the game of Survivor while I'm in the middle of a game of Survivor.
You would think. I mean, again, I feel like he's actually growing in front of us, but he had a lot of room to grow before he was just like an average player. And I thought Saul did a great job, just kind of like placating to him, coming to him, being like, hey, this is what's happening. I'm going to feed you a little bit of information. I'm going to stay cool, knowing that Andy's going to freak out and just jump ship and do whatever he says, because that's his MO, as he panics and melts down anytime someone confronts him with anything, or there's like any sort of hardship beyond just like not getting sunburned. and like played perfectly, right? Like totally 100% entrusted Soul. And now it's like, I hate Sam. I hate Sierra.
Dude, it's so extreme too, the swings. And it's so easy to manipulate him. It's crazy. Like Saul was actually really smart in this. And that's why I kind of wrote it down as like, oh, first he went from I'm in trouble to, I don't know, I was just writing down a name that they told me to do as a backup. And it's actually them who you should be mad at. And that's when his brain starts going like, yeah, these things aren't really adding up. There are like a couple times where maybe they clapped a little too loud at that coconut I chopped.
Like when they did the cut scenes, it was just something so innocent, like Sam just gives somebody like a side hug. Not even a full frontal, just a side hug. And he's like, that's the moment.
That's the one. The editing was brilliant in that. Picked up on that. So I did like how he was also like, again, just so reactive in such like a 6-year-old kind of way, right? Where he's like, all right, well, I guess I should just get all of my team out then. All of the people I've been working with, fuck them. They're done. And next 3 to 4 moves have to be exactly as I think.
Yeah.
Then
there is no pathways. Like, it's me versus Gata. But all he had talked to was Saul at that point. Like there was no other way he was going to get that accomplished.
The numbers aren't there. Just so dumb and short-sighted, but that's at least Saul has another path. Saul is opening up paths. Andy is closing them. And to answer your question, Fallen Dove, 47 seasons, they actually shoot 2 seasons at a time, and they show them 1 in summer, 1 in fall. And it's why Survivor is one of the longest reality shows ever and why it's one of the best.
Please go on a tangent while I reprimand my dog so I don't have to buy another bike helmet.
Absolutely. Wouldn't want you to blow your life savings on protective gear. Speaking of protective gear, I think that as far as Survivor goes, I would be very hard pressed to be on this show. Specifically because my skin is translucent and I don't think I'd be able to survive one day with this massive blister that would cover my entire body.
I heard translucent. I know exactly what you're talking about. The sun is real. There's not a SPF that's strong enough to keep you on that island.
No, I would be a ghost and until I became a literal ghost. All right. So speaking of ghosts, Andy really realized he's a third wheel. So his, little robot brain is going around in circles. And then he starts writing down all of everyone's names in the sand, like a fucking psychopath. It looked like the hit list from Arya Stark, as she just repeats over and over. He just writes everyone's name in the sand.
You know what it is? So I use Chat GPT for work, and I have an agent that I've created to represent me, and I just put things in its knowledge bank. That's all he was doing. He was just adding to his knowledge bank. So if he needs to recall it in the future, he's already got a list generated. Typical AI operations.
Yeah, so he's AI and he's stimming out on the ground and just writing names down. And then he talks to Genevieve because now his mission is to kill Gata, and goes over, and she, being the smart she is, she just had her number one voted out, and she's like, oh, well, this guy's an idiot. I can use him. So she's like, yeah, we're totally number ones now. I don't want to be a solo. Let's, combine forces. So she sees an opportunity. She can use Andy.
Right. I think this might be her Achilles heel, though. Like, she's so savvy at finding people in a vulnerable space and then capitalizing on their willingness to just do whatever she wants. But Andy is a little bit sloppy Joe with it. And, I think at some point he's going to spill the beans and the dots are going to be connected to Genevieve and Andy. And it's going to be like, oh, maybe she is playing a little bit harder than we thought. And to the Fallen Doves point, there are 47 seasons, but each one is its own individual season. So if you just start on season 47, episode 1, it's not like you've missed 46 seasons that pertain to this actual season.
That is a good point. So basically, you start on Survivor season 47. It should be available on Hulu, and you watch episode 1. Then, it's on wherever you stream Survivor from. I watch it on certain streaming services. And yeah, you watch episode 1. You can play us talking about episode 1, or you can just form your own thoughts about it. But we've been following religiously episode after episode and providing our thoughts. So basically, fast forward, Sue's talking about pickleball and racquetball, and then Genevieve appears with Tree Mail and comes back, and basically they have a challenge. Everyone's like, oh, a challenge, oh, okay. And they start kind of then talking about, well, what happens if we lose a challenge? Rachel is shown saying that she feels good about the ladies. Maybe we could do some ladies alliance. Meanwhile, Tiana is throwing Gabe's name out of like, this guy sucks. He's a threat. We need to keep an eye out on him. And, Sue's again, just kind of like, oh. And I just know Sue would ruin any girls alliance.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a shame too, because I think you and I both think that Gabe's a little bit of a creep, like misogynistic, narcissistic dweebo. Who doesn't do push-ups. We've clearly established in episodes 1 through 3. And I just I want Sue to get on board, but I think she's just so scared. I think she does see Gabe as somebody who is actually relevant and has the physical prowess to keep her afloat when she can't herself. And it's just man, come on, Sue, this is the smart move. But Tiana and Gabe have kind of been at odds, even though they're Tuku. Since jump.
Totally. Well, and what's really telling, right? I just view Sue, and I think the sad part is Gabe was looking for a Sue archetype for this exact reason. She's proving why he did what he did. It could have been anyone that he made feel like a maternal grandmother, but that's how she feels. And she's playing old Survivor where, I'm true to my word. I stick with one person the whole time. And this guy's my grandson. We're super close. And it's he's using you.
Yeah, it was the connection's not with Sue. It's with that archetype that Sue fits. Right. And it's just sad that Sue doesn't see that.
Yeah. So unfortunately, any girls alliance is doomed from the start. And you know, none of the other girls know just how in Gabe's pocket Sue is. But they go to the challenge. Time to show and prove. They all randomly draw rocks from a little baggie and divide into 2 groups of 6. Whoever wins immunity for the entire team of 6, and they get to watch the tribal for the team that loses. And then the one team who lasts longest on the losing team wins individual immunity. But the big kicker here is whoever gets voted out from the losing team does not make tribal. Big twist.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I think the draw was probably like one of the bigger twists. Like, I know it's luck of the draw, but to have 5 Tuku end up all on one team, it's like either that team's totally cool and they're coasting and they're going to be clearly in the advantage, or they're going to have a hard tribal if they lose. I think for the former Lava and Gato or Gata, it was a much more needed like win. Like if you're Sam or Sierra or Saul, like it's either win or potentially go home. Where if you're on the Tuku side, I mean, unless you're Rachel, you're probably cooling.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting part about the rocks is that on one side you had 5 Tuku and 1
Lavo, I believe.
Lavo? Yeah.
Wait, was Rachel with Lavo? It was Rachel.
Or no, she was with Gata. She's with yellow.
Yeah, I'm gonna freeze for a second as I pull up my notes.
Yeah.
Am I frozen?
You're frozen, but I'm pretty sure she was Gata.
Gumdrops. Yeah, she was Gata.
And then on the other hand, you had 3 and 3. You had former Lavo and former Gata, 3 and 3. So if they did lose, it's like, well, there's no, you'd have to figure out together who to get out.
Or you just go to rocks, right? You stay true to your tribe, and then if everybody's cool and ready to roll the dice, you do it.
Yeah. Where
Bird is gone, but that is all right. So, anyways, it is a heated battle right away. Oh, and Bird is back to walk us through. I basically just said the challenge starts. It's heated right from jump. They're going after it.
Yeah. So the challenge was pretty interesting. They basically had a balance beam on their head, a long balance beam with a circular platform at the end that you balanced a ball on, and you just kind of held it there while you're also balancing your feet on a, arched balance beam. So Jeff would routinely say, all right, you have to move forward. And then so while you're balancing the balance beam and the ball on top of it, you have to move forward and like not fall off the platform and also not have the ball fall off the circle or the platform. So in the end, Genevieve and Teeny won it for their team. They outlasted the last of the other squad, which was Kyle. Mm-hmm. Kyle, because he lasted the longest on the losers, got individual immunity, but still meant that his 6 people were going to tribal council, and he would have to cast a vote for somebody to go home.
Yeah. I think going back, like we talked about competitions, I think it was last week's where they were on another beam, right? And they had to balance the ball on the curve bow
on the
or
circle
whatever.
Bow. Yeah.
I think this one was like a step up in intensity from that one, like where you have that long pole and you have to hold it over your head. That just seemed hard, like regardless of the balancing portion, just balancing on the beam. Yeah. Just balancing the ball would be difficult.
Yes, but, right? The classic improv training, yes, but. It's hard to balance, sure, but also, I think of, okay, well, would I rather be doing that, like a balance thing where your arms are going to get shaky and you're going to have to like make sure you stay on the thing, or like, diving into fucking mud pits, right, followed by bark, fucking bark chips, and then running up this giant beach with a sled or like a giant sandbag. Like there's a lot more physically exhausting ones than the balance ones. And I feel like if you have good balance, people will get out fairly quickly. You're not staying there all night.
Right. It was more like a focus intensive challenge than it was a physically draining one.
Exactly. So those ones I always look at, and I'm sure they're hard, but I'm like, ooh, I want to try,
Yeah.
Those are the ones. I think we just got to find some fucking circus to allow us the grace of balance beam ball circles.
Right now, that's something like if Circus Soleil performers were to join Survivor, I would put my money on them just based on the sheer balance and acrobatics.
Yeah, and if they have grip strength, game over.
And they have to have a good social game because I guarantee there's some weirdos that they interface with on the rig.
Oh yeah, carnies, come on. So the winning team ended up being Sam, Teeny, Genevieve, Sierra, Saul, and Andy. Safe for tribal council. They also got a chance to get some fucking treats. They got baby back ribs, beer, soda, potato salad, corn on the cob, basically a whole barbecue plus alcohol. Pretty fun.
Teeny didn't hit it as hard this time as last time. It tells me a little something about the Rome effect being gone.
She's still hungover from last time. So Sam, as they're kind of eating, starts talking about, well, they're so strong, those Tukus. He was actually really smart. His angle, he was like, well, they're so strong. If they just do vote out Rachel, because it's 5 of them and 1 of her, clearly they're a strong team, and we could just use our 6 right here to pick them off one by one, right?
Yeah.
6 versus 5. And then everyone's kind of like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. And Sam's like, yeah, I'm the shit. Meanwhile, Teeny is shown talking in a confessional, talking about like, well, we just played an idol. So, there could be an idol out here. And the camera just keeps panning right next to Saul's legs. There's like a little basket with a little note sticking out of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of interesting things took place. So Sam's clearly a mathematician. Figured out 6 is better than 5. You're just looking at it from a numbers perspective. Also, so not only was there that panning of the camera, but prior to that, Andy gets up and starts actively looking for the idol when he thinks people are sleeping.
Yeah.
And Sierra's watching. She's like, you find anything, Andy?
Yeah, calls him out.
And Genevieve's, so this is already after Andy's like confessed, like, screw Gata, they're done, they're dead to me.
Yeah.
And Genevieve's hitched her wagon, but like, hey, this is gonna be the useful idiot that I bring along. And she's like, oh no. Like the realization was just all over her face, like this is the wrong one. And Andy's like,
yeah, just knocking bottles over, just like stepping on people's calves. They're like, oh, bro, all of us are trying to sleep. Can you just chill for 1 fucking second? And he can't. He literally just has no chill.
No. But Saul was doing the same thing, but he was like a little bit more tactful. He's like checking bottles, like, hey, is there anything in here? But we knew what he was doing.
Yeah. I mean, everyone, at least from the scene that we saw, like everyone had their buffs over their eyes, weren't really paying attention. That's when Saul was kind of getting up to like look around. And what did he find? He did find the note that was kind of right next to his calf the whole time. And he had been leaning up against this post. So he was able to kind of stealthily lay back down against the post that held the note and kind of slip it behind his back into his pocket. And then he just kind of waited for people to really fall asleep to go read it.
Yeah, and no one called out anything he did. Like it seems like it went off pretty seamlessly. Like he got the advantage. He was able to read it, and nobody questioned him. Nobody had any idea that something was even discovered, let alone that Andy had, or I mean, let alone that Saul was the one with it.
Yeah. So back at camp, people are scrambling. Actually, before we move to that, what did the note say, DJB? Do you remember?
Yeah. So it was an advantage that you could pass to somebody on the half that lost, right? So the Tuku, Five, and Rachel, you could pass to one of those two, and they then had the option of safety without a vote or to block somebody's vote. And we'll get into who we gave it to later because I think there's probably some conversation that needs to happen first.
Probably. So back at camp, everyone's scrambling, right? Rachel's had a funny quote. She said, "I'm put between a literal rock and a hard place." Gabe realizes, Rachel's smart and personable and that she's D-Bird's personal number one that he put up on episode 1 of this podcast. So obviously they want to get her out because fuck D-Bird. And then they're kind of looking at it like, well, Rachel's super strong just as a player. I don't think I could beat her. This would be a good time to maybe get her out. At the same time, Tiana is like, still going to push for Gabe. So she tells Rachel that it's Gabe. And the reasoning she tries to sell all of the other people on is if we go back 5 strong of Tuku, they're going to see that and they're going to pick us off one by one. Basically exactly what Sam said, right? She picks up on the math of it as well and says we can't come back 5 strong.
Yeah, I mean, really interesting philosophy. I think I would counter if I were Tuku and say, like, why couldn't we pick up one other? Right? Like, it's not a done deal that if you're 5, you're automatically gone because that 5 could bring someone else in. So I got it. I think it was a smart message to send and just get people paranoid. But ultimately, that only benefited Rachel at the time. Like, I think it was a little bit nearsighted to say, like, have the assumption that if we're 5 strong at the end of this tribal, that we're just all going to get picked off. I think there's always opportunities to bring someone else in or form like a voting block that hasn't been thought of before. Plus, we know that there's an idol out there now. So like that could swing everything, right? Even if you have 5 and the numbers on the other side are 6 and that 6 is a tight bond, if somebody on the Tuku 5 were to find an idol, like it's really not that hard to sway the vote in the right direction and gain an understanding of where things are going, play the idol, and then flip it, then you're 5-5.
Well, and that kind of is the other side of the coin, which Carolyn picked up on because Tiana went to Carolyn to talk this out. And I will say that I'm on the Carolyn train too, DJB. I know she's your number one. She's very smart and very tactful. And I love her communication style because when Tiana was too scared to be like, we should get Gabe, right? Instead it was like, yeah, here's a thought. And Carolyn's like, yeah, we're an alliance. We talk things out. We debate, right? Like, don't feel scared to tell me what you're really thinking. Tiana basically says that of like, if we get Rachel out and stay 5 strong, they're going to pick us off. Carolyn says, well, honestly, that might be true. I see what you're saying, but they're not going to get us out. They're not going to go for us, meaning Carolyn and Tiana.
Yeah.
Who they're going to go for is Kyle, Gabe. Like, I think we can work back in, even if that was true that they broke up, the tight 5, they're going to get Kyle and Gabe before they ever go for us, which I thought was also very smart.
Yeah. And I like just her approach and tact, like you said, like she doesn't volunteer information without being able to hear what somebody else is thinking and then responding. Right. So it was like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Like she never just says, here's what I'm thinking. Here's my plan. Because that does put you in a position where somebody could go back and say, hey, guess what Caroline said? So like she's always able to diffuse any situation. Like this was the information you brought to me and I listened to you and maybe I validated what you were saying, but this was your idea. And then at the end, so ultimately everybody wants to win Survivor, right? There's only going to be one
winner.
But you have to win each week through conversations, through immunity challenge, through your interpersonal skills to allow yourself to be in the position for the final three. And Caroline does a really good job of making sure that she's winning these weeks so no votes are put on her. And I
Yes.
think that that conversation with Tiana just kind of like was a microcosm of her overall game, like just saying like I need to stay safe for this week before I can worry about next week or end game.
Yeah. I mean, they say it every year where it's like you gotta trust, but also not trust. You have to trust your core group, but also you can't trust anyone because it's Survivor and there's only one winner. So it's like you're just gonna have to take calculated risk. You have to believe in your people to take you as far as they can. And hopefully the people you put trust in don't stab you in the back. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
But I also thought it was funny because in that whole scramble, Gabe, he doesn't want Rachel to play her shot in the dark. So he throws out Carolyn's name to Rachel.
Didn't like it. Didn't like it.
He's like, yeah, like, no, 100%. And he was pretty convincing. I'll give him that. He's a good liar.
Mhm.
And she's like, well, no, I take that back. He was convincing at first, but the more questions she asked, the more I was like, wait, how does that make sense? Then we'll go. And he's like, yeah, then I'll go to rocks. Like, just said all these things where it's like, no, that doesn't sound right.
Like,
And even
why?
Rachel picked up as like, no, that sounds implausible,
Mhm.
Like, I would love for it to be true, but it sounds kind of implausible what Gabe's feeding me. So on one hand, Tiana's like, it's Gabe, get him out. On the other, Gabe's like, it's, Carolyn. And she's like, I don't know. So
So
anyways,
I
go
think
ahead.
what that did is it painted more of a target on Gabe. So my feeling is if it comes at this point, if it comes down to the Gata and Lavo six coming back and Gabe's still in the game, if they are just gonna do 6-on-5, Gabe would be the first person that you pick off based on how he's playing the game. And
Yeah.
mind you, the Lavo and Gata crew are going to be at the tribal acting as jurors watching it all play out live. So they're going to get, behind the curtain look at all this.
Right. Yeah, they'll see every bit of it. So back on the beach with the winners, Teeny and Sam are playing beach baseball, just knocking fucking rocks around with a stump. And Saul's like, perfect. I'm gonna go read my note. That's when he gets, block a vote or safety. What do? He's like, what's gonna be good for my game? And thinking from Saul's perspective, yeah, sure, he could give it to Rachel, save her for the night. But what does that really do? Especially if she's a power player, she's going to come back to her team. And then what? Where does that leave Saul? Right. So on the other hand, he's like, well, could I give it to somebody else on the 2Q5? How can I benefit my game? So
Mhm.
you really start to think through, all right, I have this advantage, I have these options. Tough choice.
Yeah. I think if I were Saul, I would go for the clear underdog in this situation because I think it forces more gameplay,
Hmm.
and as a juror, it allows you to see more than if you just put it on like a Gabe or a Sue or a Caroline, because then the vote becomes really easy, right? Once they announce it, it's like, oh, slam dunk. Okay, now we'll just default and get rid of Rachel. So
Right.
I would put it on Rachel because it gives me more intel as someone who's not making the vote to see what happens and who's talking to who and how those conversations play out.
Yeah. And spoiler alert, that's exactly what he does, right? Like they go to tribal and right before any of that shit's announced, they're all kind of talking about, okay, how was it like at camp? Kyle said, Rachel did a good job, talked to everyone, went on little solo adventures, did her little wiggle, right? She's still wiggling a little worm. But yeah, she did, is what he implied. And you know, other note I wrote was Sue has weird shadow on her balloon lips.
I did notice that.
Did you?
14-year-old me would have been real jealous.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not here to, body shame or whatever. You can be Frankenstein's monster put together with pure plastic. That's not my life. I don't care. But I will say, no one believes you're 45. It's just no one does. Just there is no amount of plastic surgery that will make you look 20 years younger.
No, and again, one thing we didn't touch on that I think is always important is we've kind of underscored and highlighted Gabe and just his like narcissism, but there was another testimonial or confessional, whatever we called him, that he did, where he was talking about people being his tools, and it just drives me absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Sorry that.
No,
and
thanks
so
for bringing it up.
during the tribal, that's all I kept thinking is like, this is your opportunity, right? This is your chance to get rid of this person who clearly doesn't value anybody or anything other than himself.
Yeah.
And are Caroline and Sue, who are his like core group, going to buy in? Like, where's Kyle in this situation? I feel like Kyle is just like the friend that he has to have because he's the only dude to hang out with.
Right. Yeah, he lost his bromance with TK. So, man, I don't have anyone to bra about, brah.
Yeah, bruh.
Yeah, brah.
Bruh.
So yeah, I mean, that is thanks for bringing that up, because that bugged the shit out of me too. In his confessional, he's like, again, just playing this puppet master, where it's like, what have you done? You manipulated an old lady, a 45-year-old lady, to what? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of one last thing before Rachel pulls in her bag. Carolyn, they're going back and forth. They're talking about, what could happen tonight, what the plan should be. Carolyn says, with the new era, there's such an emphasis on big moves, but it needs to be big, smart moves.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a really banger quote, where it's like, yeah, there have been so many scenarios where people are like, let me just, eliminate this huge threat and then claim it's me, do my walk of glory, strutting around, being like, that was me. Well, guess who's next? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like, if it's you, who made the move just to be, it's you getting your torch snuffed the next week, it doesn't matter how big the move was. Again, the game is to win week after week in succession and stack those dubs. And I think I worry just as a Carolyn believer and truther, that she's too smart and she's letting people know that she's too smart, because that is exactly what you have to do. And I think she's saying too much sometimes. I almost wish in that moment she just said, I don't know where the votes are going to go. And that's the exciting part about Survivor.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Just say less.
Say less. Well, and that's always the tricky part, right? You want to balance claiming your moves versus finding the appropriate time to claim your moves, which is tribal council, right?
And that was where Charlie lost it last year. I think it was Charlie, right? The
Nantucket
kid or whatever. Yeah. But he was making moves the whole time, but he was so under the radar that when it did come time to show and prove, this is what I did, people oh, did he really? Or was it more Maria who did that? So you're right. It is finding this tenuous balance between being braggadocious in the moves that you're making and being calculated and just, being stealthy.
God, I'm still not over that. I'm sure Kenzie's enjoying her money, but Charlie should have won.
Agreed.
I will die on that hill all day. He was the brains behind the Maria Alliance. And, especially now that person was gone, he can claim, yeah, I had a hand in that. Now the one person that could claim any of my moves can't. It's me. It's me, Charlie. Yeah.
I agree, but Kenzie seemed like a good person, so I'm not mad at it.
I mean, I don't award money for good people on Survivor. I want the best game to win. But also, I wasn't on the jury. So, yeah, I think they had a couple people campaigning for them.
Yeah.
But that's last year. Who cares? This
Well,
year,
I think even though at the beginning of this episode I said just start on season 47 because 1 through 46 don't matter, I think there are lessons that viewers and contestants learn throughout the seasons, and that was one of them. That, like, even though it makes me a little bit nervous that Caroline is saying so much, maybe there is some benefit to it based on what happened to Charlie last year, not saying anything.
word. I mean, it's a good point. So Jeff says, all right, it's time to vote. And Rachel says, well, hold up. Found a little scroll in my bag 20 minutes ago. Basically it says I can, stay safe and just go back to tribal council or go back to camp. I don't get to vote, but also I'm safe for tonight. Or I get some other option that I don't choose. Who fucking cares? I'm out. Bye. And she pieces out. She is safe based on the advantage Saul found in a wicker basket. And meanwhile, Saul is playing dumb like, the what? What?
That was the best shocked face I've ever seen.
He was hamming it up. He's like, oh, what's happening?
I believed him and I saw him do it. And I was on my couch like, no, that guy has no idea what's going on.
No clue. That's a great I don't have a clue face for sure.
Yeah. I think that honestly is like, he might be the best thespian to ever grace Fiji.
Sure.
Sure.
Sales, baby. Sales. What's up, Saul? Saul the salesman.
He sold me a walker last week.
Sure did.
Yeah.
So Jeff turns to Tuku and says, you will be turning on each other. Gabe chimes in and says, just think about if we would have lost at 5, who our next plan was going to be. And then Tiana was basically like starting to cry. And, Jeff's like, what's the emotion? She's like, just hard to think, process words, crying for myself, but also crying for others. Because if I go home, that sucks. If someone else goes home, it sucks. They're devastated. It's from outward appearances, and they'd probably have to do this, but from outward appearances, it looked like they were ready to send Rachel home.
Yeah, I would agree until the turn of events where she played that advantage. Right when Tiana started talking, I was like, oh man, she's burying herself. I feel like anytime you let emotions dictate your gameplay, like it digs a little bit of a hole for you. And that would have been a perfect opportunity to not talk about like how you were sad for yourself and sad for others, but how going down the road, you want to be with people you could really trust, who are going to say the right things and remain Tuku strong and not have hidden agendas. Because if Gabe's saying, let's do what the plan was before, like there's already some preconceived notion that he's already thinking about voting someone from Tuku out. And like, I would have leveraged that rather than just like, oh, this is sad.
Yeah, that she didn't do a great job of, tossing the vote on someone else. That's for sure. So meanwhile, they start scrambling. It's a live tribal. Everyone's running to each other. Gabe goes to Kyle and literally says, Sue will do whatever we fucking want. Can't control T.
Yep.
He says, Sue will do whatever we want. We can't control T. And Kyle's like, just listening. And then, basically Kyle tells Carolyn, like, Gabe, I don't like him. He's playing a little too hard. Like, this is probably the move. And Sue goes immediately to Gabe and says, T's throwing your name around. Because of course she does. And ultimately, it looks like Carolyn's in the middle. Both people are vying for Carolyn's vote. Kyle seems to want to vote with Tiana, get Gabe out. Gabe and Sue, obviously a tight two, want to get Tiana. Carolyn's just sitting there. And you could see it in her face. Her just mind is blank. Jeff says, "What's going through your head?" Her eyes roll back in her head, like, I can't answer that right now. And just pause, just stop, dead stop. Can't answer.
Yep.
All right. Time to vote. And then everyone votes Tiana. Everyone throws their votes on Tiana.
You know, and I go back just because I'm kind of watching it from Caroline's perspective because she's been my pick since episode 1. And I'm thinking, like, what are the pros and cons that she's weighing between Gabe and Tiana? And why would she ultimately agree to stay with Gabe is the person who she plays with? And all I could think is, like, part of this was a tactical move to show Sue that she's rocking with her. Because if she votes Tiana and or if she votes Gabe to go,
yeah, loses Sue.
You could lose Sue, right? So I think for her, she just did some quick math and it came down to a numbers game. I know Sue doesn't trust Kyle either, so it's like if you're Caroline, you have to keep your number one happy, and Gabe has said all the right things. He has given them information, so there might be a little bit of trust there, or at least some convenience in keeping him as opposed to Tiana.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it on the head. I think it's just purely Sue, right? Is like you have a strong alliance with Sue, who has a strong alliance with Gabe. This would break your strong alliance with Sue, and then what are you left with, right? You have Kyle and Tiana, who kind of vote with you when it's convenient, but ultimately that's not like the strong connection that's going to get you over Tuku and Lavo, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I would have done everything I could in my power to get rid of Gabe instead of Tiana. But I don't know. Like, the game is afoot.
Game's afoot. So yeah, essentially, like, Tiana throws Gabe out, and not one person was with her. So everyone kind of decided it would be Tiana that night, and she was devastated. Like, when she walked away, she had her torch in hand and kind of looks back like,
right? It was definitely that sad puppy dog look. Like, she did not see it coming at all. I think both Sue and Caroline were going to stay true to their word, and that Gabe was going to go. So I think it was absolute shock on her end, even though it had to be, a reasonable thing to calculate that she was going to be going home. She did not do that math in her head.
Yeah. I mean, she had a little bit of it where it's like, oh, she's crying for me or for them. It's like, you're crying because now the probability raised of you going home versus just like getting Rachel out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, devastating. She felt betrayed and didn't even say a word. Just snuffed that torch. Jeff just poof, and she walks off sobbing into the night. Her game is over. She does not make the jury, and that's all she wrote.
But at this point, everybody else in the game is a jury member moving forward. So
yes,
you will have lasting impact for the rest of this season, which is cool.
Yeah, and it was kind of sad as well because she spent 10 minutes once Rachel kind of revealed like, oh, I'm going to go back to camp. I'm safe. That's when it sunk in for Tiana before the votes were ever cast. And she's like, talked about how much it would mean to make the jury, to like, man, like, this is a huge thing for me. I'd be just devastated. talked about the impact before it actually happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Worst
So
fears
now,
confirmed.
yeah, worst fears confirmed. So now we have Tuku 4,
Yeah.
Gata 4, Lavo 3, right? Because then we had Sam, Sierra, and Andy on the winning tribe. That was 3, and then Rachel.
Mm. And
So
Rachel.
there's 4.
Yeah.
Gata, and then you have Teeny, Saul, and Genevieve for Lavo, and then you have now 4 Tuku. So now the game is a little bit more precarious than it was before. It's not a simple 6 versus 5. If I'm God, I'm thinking, wait, screw that. Why wouldn't we just use our 4 and try to swing some other people or find some fissures? But Andy's the wild card that we never know what's going to happen with.
Well, yeah, that's the issue, is because he found out he was being rootied and is like, what? I'm not your best friend? I didn't actually dunk the basketball. You let me score on the hoop?
Who lowered it?
Yeah. I thought this was regulation. And now he's on a warpath. He wants to, blow it all up for his past teammates. So that also provides some interesting aspects, because if Andy goes with Genevieve and Saul, then that's a 3, right?
Well, Antini.
Antini.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of got a 4 right there that can, be really powerful in this game too.
And I don't think Kyle likes Gabe. I don't think he trusts Gabe. And so I think Kyle's kind of a free agent. It seemed like he connected with Saul pretty well. Like, Saul's really moving himself into a position that it seemed he'd never be able to be in when Rome was on the island. Like, now I think Saul is a power player.
I do too.
There's nothing to stop him. He doesn't have any bad relationships. He was brought along earlier, and so like sometimes when you are in a suppressed standing with your tribe mates, it lowers their guard. Like, you're not perceived as a threat moving forward, when really he has just as much ability to move forward as anybody else in the game, but with less expectations. So that's a dangerous player.
Definitely. It's always the one that sneak in under the radar because they were in trouble once and then they kind of got past that trouble, but you still feel like they're on the outs. When in reality, no, they got rid of their risk. Now they're floating free.
Right, exactly. And I do wonder what happens as there becomes more of an independent game moving forward, right? Like, the closer you get to that $1 million, the more you do have to be selfish in your play. And like, if I'm Caroline, do I continue to want to hitch my wagon to Sue, who's not going to be a competition threat, who hasn't always made the most sound judgment calls with who she's trusting? Like, if I'm Genevieve, do I really want to keep rolling with Andy, or do I want to really solidify something with Teeny and Saul and then just use Andy as that pivotal, like, 4th vote?
Well, and to your point, this is also the point where those individuals, start picking off pairs, right? So Sam and Sierra, definitely in trouble. Sue and Gabe, definitely in trouble, right?
Sue and Caroline, definitely in trouble.
Well, I think, yeah, if I was Caroline, I'd start looking at Sue and Gabe as like, all right, we got to break these two up, because neither one of these people are going to take me to the end. As close as Sue and Caroline might be, I think Gabe is clearly, over Caroline in the pecking order in Sue's mind.
Yeah. Well, and then you got to think about, like, people know Rachel's real sharp. I hope people understand how smart Genevieve is. We've talked about how smart Caroline is. So you got just really smart women, and then you've got a couple dudes who are just really good competitors in the physical challenges, like Sam and Kyle.
Yeah.
And like, so there's 5 legitimate threats every challenge that could go in and beat your average human. And so not only are you looking at pairs and you're looking at different voting blocks with the 3 tribes, either split at 3 or 4 people each, but then you also have your individual competitors. Like, Kyle's won 2 individuals and he finished in the top. I mean, I think, has there only been 2 individuals? He's won them both, right?
Yeah. Kyle's won every challenge so far.
Yeah, and like in the team stuff, like he's a beast. Swims fast, run fast, throws hard.
If you were on the island right now, you're part of this season 47. Who do you think your next target would be?
So I'm gonna position it like I'm playing from Caroline's spot, just because she's the person that I'm following, right? Like, so if I'm Caroline, my next target is Sam or Sierra.
Mm.
If I'm Sam or Sierra, my next target is Caroline or Sue. What about you? What are you thinking?
I'm just going to say if I was on the island now, because I mean, obviously, to your point, it matters like who your alliances are and blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm just looking at the strength of the players and their different relationships, I would want to break up Sam and Sierra, and I'd probably go for Sam because, you know, this is a challenge threat on top of a manipulation. That's probably why I want to root for him as much, because I'm like, this guy's got it. He's a really good player. I think he would be my next target, or Kyle. I feel like Kyle is sneaky good at challenges. You know, I'm fit enough where I can maybe do some balancing stuff. And so I wouldn't want to just know going into it that I'm going to lose this fucking guy. You know, I think Kyle is also so unassuming, and so it's not just the challenges. I think he hasn't rubbed anyone the wrong way. He has good relationships with everyone, even the new people that he's met. So if you just look at like pure numbers, like he's kind of talked to everyone and he's kind of good with everyone, even if it's not like super close with everyone. That's a dangerous place to be.
That is. And he is just kind of like that country bumpkin, good old boy that you like. Like there's something endearing about like just his innocence and his just general disposition.
Yeah.
And I do think that, you know, Tuku has 4, Gata has 4, but Andy and Kyle could both be wild cards from those 4. So I think Kyle's definitely a threat, but I don't see people wanting to get him out right away. I think people also feel like they could probably manipulate Kyle more than they could manipulate a Sam. So if you're looking at getting more numbers down the line, if you know the scales were to tip, if I were playing, I would rather get rid of Sam first because I feel like I'd probably have more influence over Kyle.
Definitely. Yeah, me and Kyle could be boys. We'd we'd bra down.
Sure.
Fist bump, man. Like, oh, cool necklace again. I'm totally not jealous at all.
Cool, now you have a bat on the front and a bat on the back. That's baddie.
That's baddie. Baddie for a baddie.
Oh yeah, we'd be best buds.
All right. Well, that was season 47, episode 7 of Survivor. Any other final thoughts, DJB?
Crystal ball looking forward. I think my girl Caroline's in trouble. I don't know why. I didn't see the sneak preview for the upcoming episode. Again, I think she just said too much and revealed her smart a little too quick.
Crystal ball prediction. I did see 5 seconds of the next episode. Only enough to see that it's the Survivor auction. They're doing the Survivor auction and bringing it back.
Okay.
That'll be fun. Yeah. But then it cut off immediately and went to Undercover Boss in the recorded version that I saw. I was like, what the hell? Okay, so I missed the crying of Tiana. Like, I'm going to have to find that somehow.
Oh, where she holds up her parchment?
Is that what happened? Yeah,
I don't know. That's what happens. It'll show who voted for who, and then it'll have her like 5-second spiel.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear Tiana's spiel of like, I knew it was gonna happen. Yeah, I want to see her pain. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to. But my crystal ball for next week, having no information, I think it's Sam. Only for the fact that people think him and Sierra are, bang buds, super close, like that's already been a thing. But now you have Andy, who was like really close with them, going around, probably going to be like, yeah, we got to get them all out. and everyone's probably going to see that as a good opportunity to get out a big threat in the game.
I think Andy's going to eventually roam himself, but I think he's less obnoxious, so people will hold on to him a little bit longer. But he won't be able to keep things straight.
If it were me, I know we're at the end of this, but I'm just thinking out loud now. If it were me, I'd probably want Andy in the end. I would probably try to bring him along. I would want to Sam him in the same way of like, yeah, man, me and you, we're number ones. And then just like take him to the end as kind of the GOAT, because like you have no clue what was happening around you. You had no strategic play. You reacted poorly to all the situations that were presented to you. You're not going to beat me, you know?
Yeah. I'm not so sure I would, because that's like the consummate underdog story. This guy had a complete meltdown at the beginning of the year. He was able to stay fluid in the moment. He had a clear two that were using him. He found out and he flipped it on its head, and it was his ability to be malleable in the moment that got Sam the biggest threat out, and now he's at the end. Like, I could see if he's smart enough to build that case, like that there would be a case to be made, and everybody loves an underdog, and he is the ultimate underdog right now.
I think if it were me, it would just be like, no, I kept him in the game because it was best for my game. He didn't keep him in the game. I protected him, and then I made sure he was a part of all the votes that I created. You know, it's like I got Sam out. You know.
Yeah, but if it's Sam, it's a different argument for that versus if it's Genevieve versus if it's Sierra, right? Like if it's Sam, then it's like, yeah, I had bro act like he was taking a nap and get his shot in the dark that he lost. We saved him when everybody was going to flip on him after week 1, and we got John out because that made the most sense for our game. But if it's Genevieve who just hops on now, like that's going to be a much more difficult path to convince people that you took, and like because he's already made the merge without you.
Yeah, I think if I were Genevieve or anyone coming in later, it's like, well, no, we knew Sam was carrying you along. Like he told me as much, and you know, like I kind of wanted to do that once you lost trust in Sam. Well, then I just took his place. Now I'm the Sam.
Right.
Yeah.
Sam, I am.
Sam, I am. But we'll see what happens next week. I'm definitely way more invested in this season than I was on episode 4.
Yeah. Like we talked, I think it was around like the scales be tipping episode, so maybe episode 5, where we're like, okay, now the game's starting to take off. This was a slower start to Survivor, I feel, but now we're really gonna see stuff hit the fan now that there is that equity amongst former tribes, and they're all merged together, and there is some dissension even within those former tribes. So I think there's probably gonna be a little bit more sneakiness and treachery down the line.
One can only hope.
Ooh-hoo-hoo. I won't do that again.
Well, this is very spooky.
Yeah, 'tis the season.
Well, as far as spookiness and treachery, I believe we've treached as much as we can treach about this episode. So I'm about to spook my way back to bed and fall asleep for the night, and wake up and live this nightmare all over again.
We probably got to work on that close a little bit, but I appreciate the effort.
I'm great at transitions.
Yeah.
But thanks everybody for joining us. This has been White Collar Reacts Survivor Season 47, Episode 7. We'll see you next week.